Hi everybody! In this video we're gonna start building our home screen. We're gonna look at how to create and save an app, how to add different controls and how to set up their properties. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start building the home screen of our application. I am here in the Office 365 portal, and the first thing we're going to do is click on PowerApps. That will open the PowerApps Maker. Okay, from this interface we're going to click on Apps. We see that we have only one app. This app is the one that I have built, but we're going to create our first app. So I click on New App, and in this case we're going to select Canvas app. Okay, in this case we are going to create a blank app. So I can select between a phone layout or a tablet layout. In this case we are going to select a tablet layout. Okay, and we are here in the main screen for managing our application. You see in the left section we have this tree view that show me all the screens I'm working on, right? In this case we have our first screen, which name is screen 1. We are going to start changing the name. In this case we click on these buttons, we click on rename, and we are going to write home screen. That's it. The second thing we're going to do is let's save our application. Okay, so I click on file, and here in this screen we need to specify the name of our application. This application is going to be Opportunity Management App. Let's say demo. Okay, here we can select from a different possible icons. Okay, let's say I want to use this particular icon and this particular background. Okay, and we can add a description if we want. So now let's click on save. In this case we are going to save this application to the cloud, so we click save. Okay, the application has been saved. So now we can start building our application. So I have a screenshot of the home page that we want to build. The first thing we are going to do is to start adding the controls. So let's start building this header. When I click on insert, we see several options. You see here that we have the icons section, where we have several icons we can add to our screen. In this case, I'm going to look at the rectangle icon. I'm going to click on that, and you will see that that rectangle has been added to my screen. That will be basically the header. Okay. Next, we need to add this text, and we need to add these 4 icons. So let's first add the text. To add the text, we're going to use this control, which is label. I click on label, and I'm going to put this label centered here, and let's add the text. In this case will be Sales Opportunity Management App. So you see that by default the property text will allow me to change what I'm going to show there. So that will be Sales Opportunity Management App. The next thing we need to add is these 4 icons. So let's look at those icons in the icon section. Okay, the first icon will be this one, at. I'm gonna put this icon here in the right section. Then we need to add this icon to order the information of the customers. So I'm gonna look at that. Let's say, yeah, this is the one. And also we found this reload, which is gonna be used to refresh the information. I'm gonna put those icons here. So let's look at that icon. Yeah, settings. That's great. Then we need to add additional controls. You see that we have different controls. We have 3 drop downs, and we have also 3 labels here. So let's start adding the labels and the drop downs. Okay, let's add one label here. This label will have the text region. Let's add now the drop down. To add a drop down, I just need to click on input, and there are several options we can select. In this case, we are going to click on drop down. Okay, the drop down has been added. And now I'm just gonna copy these two controls, the label and the drop down. I'm gonna copy here and paste, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and the same for the third control. Okay. And now just let's change the text. For example, in this label, we are gonna look at the properties. To update any property, in this section you will see all the properties available for each control. So in this case, the property I want to change is the text property. I'm gonna change that, and in this case will be country. And the same for this label. I'm gonna look at the text property and I'm gonna change to industry. That's great. So now we have the first three controls. Let's see what other controls we have here. Okay, we have a label and a text box, and also a label and this control, which is gonna be the toggle control. Okay, so let's start adding those controls. We can again copy this label and paste and change the name. In this case will be filtered by this rule, so let's add that text. Filter by the can executive, sales specialist, SDR, etc. Okay, that's good. And let's add a text control, right? I can click on text input. Okay, we have the text control here. Let's copy again this, copy and paste. And in this case, we're gonna change that to show only prioritized accounts. So let's change that, show only accounts. Great. And let's add a toggle control. In this case, if we go to input, we will find that toggle control. I can click here, great, and I put this control here. And the last one will be this control that will show me the number of customers. This is gonna be a special control. This is gonna be the HTML control. And to add that control, we need to go to text and select HTML text. Okay, we have added that. Let's change the text. In this case, as you can see, since this is an HTML text control, we have the possibility to not only put text, but also to add some HTML tags. As you can see in the example, we are using this tag to put in bold the text, or we can specify the color of the specific text. So let's say, for example, I want to change this to red, and we are going to see the difference here, right? In this case, we are going to change the text to be similar to this case, that will be number of customers. We're going to change that later, but for now, let's keep that in this way. Okay, if we want to see how it's looking our app, we just can click on this button to have a preview of the app. And yes, we can see we have the drop downs with some sample data. We have this control where we can add some text. We have the toggle control and also our icons that they are not doing anything at this moment. Okay? So everything is okay. In this case, we are gonna save the work that we have been doing. We click here on save, and after saving, you're gonna see that we have this publish button. We are gonna only click on publish when our app is okay to be used by the users. At this time, since we are working on the building of the app, we are gonna just click on save. So yes, at least the first control has been added. Now what we need to do is start applying some look and feel to this control, right? So let's start. So the first thing we're gonna do is we are gonna change the color of this rectangle. Okay, remember that all the properties can be accessed by in this section. If I click to this drop down, we're gonna see all the properties associated to the rectangle control. If we select the control, we can also see that we can update the properties from this panel in the right section. The first property we're gonna update will be the fill property. So I click here, we have a default color, and you can see what's that color. In this case, I'm gonna use one color I already have selected. I'm gonna paste this color, and you can see it have changed automatically. Now let's go to the text, okay? Since this is a text, we can from here do many adjustments. For example, I'm going to click on the align option to align by in the center. We can also change the font. In this case, the font size, let's put it on, let's start with 18 to see how it looks. Okay, let's change the color. To do that, we can go to the color property. Okay, and let's say we wanna change this to white. Let's do that by now. Okay, now we can see the text. Now let's change some of the properties of these icons. We can select several icons at the same time. In this case, we're gonna select this icon and we are gonna change the color property. Let's write white. We can apply the same adjustment to the other icons if we select all of those icons at the same time, and when we click on color we can change that to white. But we see that those icons are too big, so in this case I'm gonna change the size. As you can see, we can change the size here. In this case we're gonna use 50 by 50, and we are gonna apply the same to the rest of the icons. Let's select all of these icons and apply the same configuration. The size is gonna be 50 by 50. Okay, now looks better. Now let's configure other properties. One property which is really important in the applications is the font, right? So we are gonna use the font that we see in this screen. To do that, let's select all the controls that use text. In this case will be all the labels. For example, we can select all the labels at the same time. Also the HTML text control can have text, so we are gonna apply the same look and feel to that. In this case we're gonna look at the font property. So the text I'm gonna use will be this one, Patrick Han. If we click here, we see how it looks. But now we probably need to change the size of the text, right? In this case, let's write size here. And let's put the size of 18, for example. Okay, now the application is looking better. Now let's continue configuring some of the other properties now for the drop downs. Now, let's modify another properties, in this case for this drop down control. If we click on the preview, we're gonna see that this particular control has many properties to be updated. We see the border, we see the chevron, for example. There it's gonna have a hover color. When I press one of the items, it has a separate color. So there are a lot of properties to do. We are gonna just update some of those properties, and for the complete list of most important properties to update, I'm gonna share that information in the description. So let's select this control and let's look at some of the interesting properties we're gonna change. In this case, for example, we can start changing the border color, right? So if we look at the border color property, we can put this color. It's changing. Now let's update some of the properties regarding the chevron. If we look at chevron, the properties, chevron background, we can change the chevron background. Let's put this color, this particular color. Okay, we see that the chevron background have changed. Also we can change the chevron fill, and we're gonna change that value as well. Now let's look at other properties. In this case we can look at the hover fill. So let's look at the hover fill, yeah, and let's change that. Okay, you see it's changing, but it's too dark, so I'm gonna change that. So in this case, since it's too dark, we wanna use the color fade function, and we are gonna use some fading. We need to specify the fade, which is gonna be a percentage value. In this case, let's say for that color, fade to 85%. Okay, so when we preview, we will see when I put my mouse here, the color has changed. Now let's look at some important properties regarding the toggle control. When I select the toggle control, one of the important properties will be the true text and the false text. If I click on true text, I want to put the value here to yes, and if I select the false text, I'm gonna put the value of no. So if I preview here and I click here, we're gonna see that the value is yes. Now, before finishing, let's do some last adjustments. If you go to the left panel, when we see all the screens we're working on, you will see that from in the home screen, we see all the control we have just added. Okay? But you see that this control have a default name. The situation here is that it's difficult to identify which of these controls in the home screen are the ones who have been added here. Okay? So the best practice is to specify a name for each control. Let's say I want to put a name to this label that show me the title of the app. The default name of this control is label 1. If we want to change that, we click on these 3 points and then we click on rename. Now let's use a standard. Since this is a label, let's start the name of this control with LBL and let's put title. Okay, and enter. We need to do the same for the rest of controls. So for example, in the case of the drop down, if I select this drop down, we can do the same. We can rename this control, and in this case, since it's a drop down, let's use DDWM region. Okay, that was all for this video. In my next video, we are gonna look at some different ways to apply values to the control's properties. So if you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share this video with your friends. Hope to see you again. Bye.